But where we want to start today, Stein,
Yes.
is with football, because we finally got a game this Sunday. 1 o'clock, it's on NFL Network. 49ers is going to be taking on the Raiders. And you might say, it's just the first week of preseason. You know, Brock Purdy's out enjoying practices today, was there yesterday. He's playing. We won't get to see him on Sunday, but we will get to see Trey Lance. We will get to see Sam Darnold. But this marks the beginning of the campaign for the 49ers, because if you are a believer that this team can go all the way, that they have what it takes to win a Super Bowl, well, today we want to hear from you, because we're going to be jotting down, we're going to be taking some notes. We're going to be collecting receipts at this point. This is your last chance to get something off of your chest about the San Francisco 49ers before the season officially gets underway. And I know the regular season begins on September 10th, week 1 in Pittsburgh, but after today, every single Monday from here until February, we are going to be talking about football. That is what is going to drive the conversation here on this show and this station, really, because everyone is, we talked about it early in the week, signing, like everyone is locked into the San Francisco 49ers because the expectation for this team has never been higher.
Certainly not in the Shanahan era, I would think. Looking back, when Jim Harbaugh was the coach, there was definitely some excitement there, and obviously when Colin Kaepernick was doing his thing. But I think heading into a season, this is gold this year, because you know me, I'm not a Super Bowl or bust type of guy, or NBA title or bust, and if you don't win the title, everything's a failure. But a couple teams in different sports can claim that. You know, they're at that point, and the 49ers are at that point. They just are. They've been to 3 NFC championships in the last 4 years, and I think they feel better about this team than any team they've had under Kyle Shanahan. In other words, I think Shanahan and Lynch and the players think that this is the best team of the last 6 years under Kyle Shanahan. So if that's the case, this team's got to get to the Super Bowl. They've got to get to the Super Bowl. And I know, when you get to the Super Bowl, you got to win it. But that's where I stop, because who knows what's going to happen if they get, maybe they end up playing Kansas City and Mahomes throws for 7 touchdown passes, and it's just greatness. Mm-hmm. But after last year, after the slow start, after all the injuries, they've named Purdy the starter. They got to get to the NFC Championship game again, and they have to win it this year. That's what I think this year comes down to.
And I think the origin of this too is because Chris Say on YouTube is throwing his opinion into the table. Like, you can say the same for the Bills. You can say the same for the Bengals. Well, the reason why we're not talking about those teams, even though I think a lot of people expect them to be competing with the Chiefs in the AFC, is because of that. The 49ers are in a 2-horse conference. It is them and the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the Dallas Cowboys got something to say, but they also play in the same division as the Eagles. So if Philadelphia is a better team, Dallas is going to have to play on the road. And this is where, look, we were talking to the boss before the show, and just kind of get an idea of what he's feeling, what the audience might be feeling. And this is why we want to offer the opportunity for people to chime in at 888-957-9570. Get it off your chest now before the preseason officially gets underway for the San Francisco 49ers, before we got football to talk about each and every Monday for the next 6 months. What is it about the San Francisco 49ers that you believe rests on this season? Like, what are you feeling from your San Francisco 49ers? 888-957-9570. One game at a time from Alex on YouTube, which is all powered by First NorCal Credit Union. I am with Alex. It is one game at a time. But it's one game at a time, not in the sense of, well, let's just wait and see. To me, every game is so important because of that 2-horse race. It's almost like you're not even competing in the same division. Like, the NFC West does not matter at this point. To what you're talking about, the Super Bowl is the only thing that the 49ers have their eyes on. Now, maybe not winning it, but getting there, getting out of the NFC. And that's why where I'm at with the 49ers, and what I got to get off my chest, is they need to approach this season like Alabama football, like a college football team that is dominant year in and year out, that expects to compete for a national championship, which is, you're not playing the rest You're not competing with the rest of the SEC. You're competing with the top 4 teams around the rest of the country. If you're the San Francisco 49ers, you got to be having your eyes on everything that the Philadelphia Eagles do from week 1 on, because you got to beat them in order to get what Kyle Shanahan had identified as one of the team's goals, which is win the division, make the postseason, but most importantly, get those 2 home games, one of which they didn't have last year.
When I think about the 49ers season coming up, I feel like they're one of the best teams in the NFC. I think we all agree that their talent on paper is as good as every team in the NFC, with the possible exception of the Eagles. You hope to find that out as the year endures. So I look at the 49ers this year, and I expect them to win the division and get into the playoffs, and then make some noise in the playoffs. But to me, not a bigger issue, because that's the biggest issue, is how the season goes. But parallel to that is what happens with Brock Purdy and the quarterback position. When the season's over, if the season ends in the Super Bowl with a Super Bowl win or with a Super Bowl loss, or maybe they can't get over the hump against the NFC, the Eagles again, where are we with Brock Purdy? Because if you go through the season, you go 12-5, you play the Eagles again, you lose to the Eagles, and Purdy is essentially the quarterback he was last year, then where are we? Then what do we do if the Eagles get us 2 years in a row and Jalen Hurts is really good, he's better than Purdy, then where are we after this year? That to me is going to be an interesting portion of this year if they don't win the Super Bowl. If the 49ers run the table, win the Super Bowl, then obviously everything changes. But if they get there again, knock on the door, don't get over it, then where are they? And I'm not saying, Kyle Shanahan might be. No, it's not that. It's, do we try to retool? Do we overhaul? Do we take big chances? Do we stay the course? So that's what I think is going to be the fun part of this year. The other thing is they got to get off to a good start. They can't start 3-5 again, because they're going to have to go on the road and win a game against a really good team. And you can, but it's harder to do it that way.
Yeah, and 3-5 was a 2021 season. Of course, they made the run to the NFC Championship, where they were on the road. They lost to the Los Angeles Rams, who went on to win the Super Bowl. Last season, they started out 3-4. After the Week 7 loss to Kansas City, they got Christian McCaffrey integrated, Jimmy Garoppolo, then on to Brock Purdy, and lose another game. And they made the run to the NFC Championship, where they lost on the road. Now, I'm not saying that the 49ers can't win a road NFC Championship game, but you make it significantly easier for yourself if, to your point, you get off to a fast start. You place every emphasis on the solo game on week in and week out, because yes, over the course of a season, you're going to have some tough games. You might get banged up, and we'll talk about some of the injuries that have befallen the 49ers already in these joint practices with the Raiders. But if you do not start the season neck and neck with the Philadelphia Eagles or playing from ahead, well, then I'm looking at this Niners team, and I do wonder if this is a team that can go into Philadelphia and win. And to me, this is where they are unique from that point of the quarterback signing, because let's say the Niners, same scenario plays out. They go 13-4. Eagles are a game ahead of them. They get the home game. Niners advance to the NFC Championship. Brock Purdy has another 2 playoff wins under his belt. You fall short. We're not in a place next offseason to where you're questioning Kyle Shanahan's job, or at least I'm not, because that'd be a third, NFC title game.
Right.
But it's not what I think the fans want to hear. It's not the result that they're looking for. Anything less than a trip to the Super Bowl, and maybe even for some, a win in the Super Bowl, is not going to be enough. And while that might be unfair, that's just the reality, and that's the expectation. That's the weight of the expectation that the 49ers have built for themselves because of their successes.
Here's why I struggle with saying if the 49ers don't win the Super Bowl, it's a failure, or it's a disappointment. Because I think we got to acknowledge that there's some really good teams in the AFC, obviously Buffalo and the Kansas City Chiefs. But the NFC for the 49ers, it's right there. It's let's be honest, it's the Philadelphia Eagles right now. Now, maybe the Rams have something in them. Maybe the Seattle Seahawks are going to be 2 games better than we think. But it's the Philadelphia Eagles. That's a team that the San Francisco 49ers can target and they can beat. So I want them to do that because that's first thing. Now we get to the Super Bowl. This is where I do think, okay, well, you may run into one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time who is so great that he might be able to single-handedly be the difference in the Kansas City Chiefs winning the Super Bowl over the 49ers. In other words, I'm willing to acknowledge that Mahomes could have a performance in him that's unbeatable because the quarterback position is that important. So that's why to me, yes, you want to win the Super Bowl, but that's the outlier. We'll try to beat the Chiefs after we beat the Eagles, and we have 2 weeks, and we'll try to figure out the Chiefs. But you gotta get there. You gotta leapfrog the Eagles this year. To me, that's the number one goal for the 49ers.